fellow Nigerians. Events of the past few years have indicated that despite our great human and material resources, the government has not been able to fulfill the legitimate expectations of our people. Nigeria has been left to drift. This situation, if not arrested, would inevitably have resulted in chaos and even bloodshed.
In July 1975, as General Yakubu Gowon sits in a conference hall in Uganda, listening to a UNESCO speech, completely unaware that back home in Nigeria, the very men who was pledged to protect him with their lives are now plotting his downfall. But it wasn't his enemies who brought him down, it was his most trusted inner circle. Earlier July 1975, Nigeria's intelligence chief, Mohammed Yusuf, rushed to Gowon with alarming news. The same officers who had brought him into power 9 years through a bloody counter-coup would choose the same anniversary to orchestrate the most sophisticated betrayal in Nigerian military history. Among them was Colonel Joe Garba, commander of the Brigades of Guards, the man literally responsible for Gowon's personal security. But Gowon, perhaps blinded by 9 years of loyalty, could not fathom such betrayal. He decided to wait until after the OAU conference. That decision would cost him everything. The core conspirators weren't random disgruntled officers. They were the same men from the July 1966 coup that brought Gowon to power. Shehu Yaradua, Ibrahim Babangida, Muhammad Buhari, Joe Garba, Anthony Ochefu, one of his closest military advisors, and others. They were the insiders who felt excluded from the power structure they had helped create. While these war-tested veterans simmered with resentment, Gowon's closest advisors were men like Hassan Katsina, David Ejo, amongst others, who had never participated in coups or fought in the civil war. The conspirators knew they couldn't just remove Gowon by themselves. They needed the big guns, so they approached the most charismatic northern officer in the entire Nigerian army, Brigadier Murtala Mohammed. Garba and Yaradua approached Murtala at his Ikoyi home to find him reciting the Quran. They waited respectfully until he finished, then made their pitch. Murtala concurred and reiterated his usual contempt for Gowon, stating that Gowon's overthrow is overdue, but he won't participate directly in another armed conflict, but he would rather give moral support and protection in case the coup fails. Lieutenant Colonel Yaradua probed Babangida with casual political questions. The same method Majors Nziogu and Ifeajuna had used in the January 1966 coup to identify potential allies. History was literally repeating itself. By mid-1975, the northern military establishment had split into two camps. The pro-Gowon faction, mainly middle belt officers, and the pro-Murtala faction. These were officers from the far north. The battle lines were drawn not just by ambition, but by geography, ethnicity, and perceived betrayal. The genius move was, the plotters secured passive support from key brigadiers. They didn't need their senior officers to actively participate. They just needed them to do nothing when the coup happened. July 28, 1975, near midnight, Colonel Garba arrived at Colonel Walbe's house, Gowon's most loyal aide, who had just returned from Kampala, Uganda, to pick up a document Gowon had forgotten. Colonel Garba, dressed in full combat gear, armed with a pistol and a grenade, demanded that Walbe choose sides, even involving Walbe's wife as witness. When Walbe offered no clear commitment, Garba delivered a chilling warning not to try anything heroic, also informing him that senior officers want to see him and that his house is surrounded by troops. The psychological warfare was masterful. Walbe, believing the coup had brought military support, even discouraged a soldier who offered to resist with the brigades of guards, warning that resistance would be suicidal. The irony, exactly 9 years to the day after Walbe had participated in the overthrow and unaliving of Major General Aguiyi-Ironsi, he discovered that in the world of military coups, what goes around truly comes around. While Gowon slept peacefully in Uganda, soldiers quietly secured Lagos airports, cut communications, and grounded all flights. No shots were fired, no blood was shed. At dawn, Colonel Joe Garba, the man Gowon had trusted with his life, walked into Radio Nigeria and delivered the most shocking announcement. Speaking with genuine emotions, perhaps guilt or triumph, Garba declared Gowon removed as head of state, imposed a curfew, and urged calm. The coup was bloodless, precise, and surgical, a masterclass in military efficiency. The strategic brilliance was Garba was chosen to make the announcement for a psychological reason. As commander of Gowon's personal guards, hearing his voice would immediately signal to other security officers that this was an inside job, making resistance pointless. Even more shocking, Garba wasn't an ordinary northern officer. He was from the same ethnic minority background as Gowon, possibly even a distant relative. This was not just betrayal, it was fratricide. When the news reached Uganda, it was Idi Amin, Uganda's dictator, who broke the news to Gowon during the OAU conference. Gowon initially brushed Amin off, but as he sat in the conference hall listening to Dr. Ahmadu Mukhtar Mbo speak, the reality hit him. He turned to a colleague and whispered, "What we have always feared has happened." Instead of fighting back or claiming legitimacy, Gowon issued one of the most gracious statements in coup history, pledging loyalty to the new government and even joking that he was now private citizen Gowon. Conspiracy theories later swirled. Gowon's family was abroad, Army Chief David Ejor was conveniently out of the country, and the transition was too smooth. Was it really a coup or a planned handover? After successfully removing Gowon, the coup plotters had to decide who would actually lead the country. At Dodan Barracks, 2 a.m. July 30th, a dramatic confrontation unfolds. The colonels had decided on a troika of Murtala, Obasanjo, and Danjuma. But when they told Murtala that major decisions would require majority support from the ruling council, he absolutely exploded, demanding full authority as head of state. After hours of tense negotiation lasting until 4 a.m., Murtala finally agreed but made himself clear that he will govern independently and not be controlled by those who put him into power. At 37 years old, Brigadier Murtala Mohammed seized power with both hands and reshaped Nigeria in his image. If Gowon governed with diplomacy and patience, Murtala ruled with an iron fist and lightning speed. His first morning in office became legendary. Notorious Lagos lateness disappeared overnight. Workers who had spent years perfecting excuses for tardiness suddenly found ways to beat this traffic. The mere reputation of the military strongman from Kano was enough to transform workplace culture across the city. Apart from the change of leadership, it decimated the entire establishment. 12 military governors gone. 10 of them were dismissed with ignominy after corruption investigation. Over 10,000 public officials retired or dismissed. Even janitors, gardeners, and cleaners weren't spared. It was a complete system reset. The July 1975 coup changed the game forever. Unlike the 1966 coups, where perpetrators had no interest in personal political gain, the 1975 plotters carved up government positions among themselves. Yar'Adua, Buhari, Babangida, and Garba all became household names, moved into plush offices, and acquired wealth. For the first time in Nigerian history, coup plotting became not just possible but profitable. The same officers who complained about being excluded from power under Gowon would later exclude others. Babangida, who helped strip corrupt officials of their assets in 1975, would mysteriously return those same assets in 1993 as military dictator. The students had become the master. The revolution had become the establishment. Many of the same officers who betrayed Gowon would later turn on each other in subsequent coups. Babangida would eventually overthrow Buhari. The cycle of betrayal that began in 1975 would plague Nigerian politics for decades. The fall of Gowon proves that in politics, there are no permanent friends, only permanent interests. The man who swore loyalty became his executioner. And the most chilling twist, Murtala, who refused to directly take part in Gowon's fall, would himself be assassinated just 7 months later. In the ruthless world of military politics, even the strongest are never safe. Was this betrayal or destiny? Drop your thoughts below and stay tuned for the next chapter in the rise of Nigerian military coup tradition.